Hello and welcome to Midwest Writers Room. Our mission is to encourage, educate, and celebrate writers of the Midwest. I'm Luella Schmidt.
And I'm Ken Humphrey. Today we're interviewing Geoff Herbach. Geoff grew up in southwestern Wisconsin playing both football and the cello, which is just a beautiful combo, I think. He is author of 9 young adult novels, a picture book, and a literary novel. He received the Cybils Award for Best YA Fiction, the Minnesota Book Award, and the Burr Worzalla Award from the Wisconsin Library Association.
Geoff's books have been highlighted by the Junior Library Guild and listed among the year's best by the American Library Association, the American Booksellers Association, and the International Literacy Association. In the past, he produced radio comedy shows and toured rock clubs telling weird stories. Geoff teaches creative writing at Minnesota State University in Mankato. Geoff, welcome to Midwest Writers Room. We're so happy that you're here. Our Minnesota roots are showing, and we're happy to have you.
Yeah, it's nice to see all the purple. Of course, you're in Wisconsin, and I'm from Wisconsin, and thus I'm wearing the green here in Minnesota. But
Perfect.
it's great to be here. Yeah.
Yes, we have sort of an odd table flip dichotomy going on today. And also, shout out to my alma mater, Minnesota State University Mankato, although back in the day it was just called Mankato State
This Mankato
University.
State.
They've
Yeah.
since changed their name. So, Geoff, looking forward to this episode, looking forward to chatting with you. And as we normally do on these episodes, before we even talk about your work, we want to talk about you, kind of figure out that origin story. A lot of writers kind of come into it along the same path, right? They grow up from readers, you know, but often they can trace it to that one moment when they said, yes, this is what I want to do is writing. Do you have that singular moment where you said, yep, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I remember wanting to write stories even as far back as like fifth grade when, I'd get an assignment in school. It was kind of the only thing I was interested in. If it was writing, I'd want to do it. Um, but even as an elementary school kid, I was like 95% sure I'd play professional football, and so writing was kind of off to the side. I didn't play sports at the time. I just I'd watch them on TV and think, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. Um, and yeah, I didn't actually start playing sports until I was in middle school, when I went through this growth spurt, and that actually sort of became the topic of my first book. And kind of got big, and I got fast, and started running and playing football. And even when I was in uh, a junior in high school, I kind of still thought there's only 75% chance I'm going to play pro football. I mean, I just want you to look at me. It was that was totally delusional. But I grew up in a small town. I was okay. So one time, there was this kid from this Dodgeville High School. I don't know. Dodgeville is also another place in southwestern Wisconsin. I grew up in Platteville in the Southwest, and I swear he had like this handlebar mustache uh, when he was a junior or senior in high school, and he had these giant biceps kind of hanging out underneath his jersey. And one of the other running backs said to me, that kid told me he's going to kill you during this game. And I was like, kill me? I'm going to be a professional football player. I think I'll be fine. Um, but that kid hit me so hard at one point during the game that my like feet flew up over the top of my head. I remember things kind of being in slow motion where like, they through the Friday night lights, I saw my feet above me, and then I landed on the back of my head, and the sky kind of turned colors and swirled around. And I thought at that moment, maybe I should be a writer. And it was this like real sort of crystal kind of moment of decision. And I really did, after that hit, think, I think I'm going to write instead. And I got very serious about it. It
I
took
feel
me
like
about
we have a
another.
new motto for the show, which is, come on, be a writer. It's better than getting the heck beat out of you.
That
I was trying
is,
to find a way to say that with kind words.
It literally
I,
was an impactful moment.
it was an impactful moment. Yeah. Yeah. And so that was kind of what turned me. It took me a long time to figure out what kind of writer I wanted to be. Um, but that was I was serious, and so I went to, University of Wisconsin eventually and wore all black and, grew my hair out and looked like a writer, walking up and down State Street.
And so, well, just to give you insight to the male mind, and this may not surprise you, but at some point, we all, as young boys, think we're going to play professional sports. I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to play football. And then I realized I was only going to grow up to be 5'7", and the only thing I was good at was being fast. Right? I had absolutely no athletic coordination otherwise. I had to run really fast in a straight line, which didn't lend itself to any sort of athletic, sport besides track.
Mhm.
So, Geoff, let's then talk about some of the writing that you have done. You got 9 young adult novels. That's the preponderance of the books you've put out.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite genre to read, or what attracts you to young adult novels?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't I mean I do read YA and I like it. I read around. I try to read as much of everything as I possibly can because I teach and I want to make sure that I kind of have an idea of what my students are into. So I read all over the place. I do read some YA. Um, this first book that I wrote, first YA book that I wrote was called Stupid Fast, and I published just a regular literary novel before that, and I wrote that book and I sent it to my agent, and he said, "Oh, this is YA," and my first thought was, "There are no wizards. um, this can't possibly be why I don't know what you're talking about." And yeah, he's the one who said, there are all kinds of different genres under the umbrella of YA, and what you're writing is for teens. And he gave me a number of books to read at that point. And I could see how it was, and I changed a couple of things in the book, not very much, I took out a little bit of the profanity. Um, and and then that book sold as YA, and it was much more successful than the literary novel that I did. And I just kind of got on a train after that and kept writing that kind of thing to that kind of audience. And it's really been sort of the spine of my career as a writer since then. Yeah.
Very cool. And I did want to ask about that literary novel. Where is that kind of sandwiched in your lineup of books? And what's it about? What made you decide to write that?
Well, that was the first one. So it was my MFA thesis. Uh, I'd spent a long time working with a mentor on it. At the time, I was also writing a lot of comedy. And the book is a bunch of letters. And that form actually worked really well for, it's a good joke format, essentially. So, even though the characters have heart and there's, real difficult stuff going on, a lot of the letters were essentially jokes. Um, and that, I guess, spoke to me at the time, and that's what came out quickly. It still took quite a while to write the entire thing. Um, but that was the first one. And I wasn't entirely sure I'd write another book after that. I did like I did like jokes and I did like doing comedy stuff. It was quicker, the money comes more quickly. And it's more collaborative, and I liked working with a group. Um, rather than sitting behind a desk by myself at the time. I really grew into liking the loneliness that comes along with being a writer for the page. Yeah.
Yes, we have to be solitary creatures just for our own sanity's sake. So you
Yes.
mentioned an agent. You had an agent for the literary novel. It's the same one as the YA. Did he cover multi-genres?
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of interesting about the that agent Jim, he did not have a specialty going in. He was a pretty young guy, and it was kind of nice. I got with him as a young writer, and he was young, and he sort of was evolving while I was evolving, and he turned into just a huge YA agent. But that wasn't what his intent was necessarily at the beginning, and so I kind of evolved with him.
Are you still with him today? Is he still your current agent?
No, I did end up moving to another agent because I started writing things that uh, weren't in his wheelhouse. And so we still email each other on occasion, and I love him dearly, but I'm with a different agent now. Yeah.
So we don't often get into this too much, Luella, but let's take a minute and kind of poke at this. So what is it like when you leave one agent and go to find another? When you were searching the new agent, did you kind of reference the fact that, yes, I have another agent and I'm looking for a new one? Or how did that split work and how did you procure the new guy?
Well, this is this is sort of a Nepo baby story. Um, my wife is a writer as well, and we wrote a novel together um, that her agent took out, and so I ended up just moving directly to her. So it was real easy. You know, when I told when Jim and I decided that it would be best if I went with someone else, he did give me a number of names, uh, people that I could look into who were representing the kind of thing that I was doing. Um, and I contacted them, but anybody who has tried to procure a new agent knows that they are overwhelmed, these people, and it takes a long time for them to get back to you. Even if they're interested, it takes a long time to get it back to you. And I had a lot of heat under the project I wanted to do, and um, thankfully, my wife's agent was willing to take me on. So we're now together, which is a little weird. Steph is one of the people that I wrote comedy with when I was a young person. So we already had sort of a collaborative, yeah. In fact, in some ways, we get along best when we're working on something. If we're just walking around the house making messes.
The pair that laughs together stays together, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, Luella, should we dive into the WWA message?
You bet. Folks, the time is winding down to get registered for WWA's virtual critique classes. As a writer, feedback from peers is critical to developing your craft, and WWA provides a comfortable environment to enable such growth. We offer tracks in the areas of fiction, nonfiction, novels, memoir, and poetry. Learn more at wiwrite.org under the Writing Programs menu. All right. We are back with more of Geoff Herbach. So tell our listeners what you're currently working on.
Um, well, believe it or not, it's a sports YA book. So I'm back at that. Yeah, I'm just finishing up the final pages on a book called um, Run the Play, and it is a football YA book, and that will be coming out from Scholastic in I think they're taking it out in the fair. The fair. I've never been with Scholastic before, so I'm pretty excited to see what the fair does. It's such a cool marketing
Yeah.
marketing pipeline. So I think it'll go out with the fair next year, and I'm not sure when the general trade title will come out, but yeah, so that's whenever they get going in August or September. And yeah, that's been a really interesting kind of journey with an editor who was really hands-on. I haven't had an editor who was particularly hands-on for a long time, and it was great. I liked the collaboration, and and she's a lot younger than me, and I think that was helpful. I feel kind of old to be writing for teenagers at this point. So it was great to have her perspective, and she was just a
Yeah, I bet
really
that is helpful.
good, yeah, narrative. just really good at like building narrative tension. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So when you're drafting, do you have like a routine kind of daily that you find yourself following, or are you kind of all over the board? What's your writing routine like?
I'm very much a binger. That's how I would describe it. I'm because I have a difficult time remembering from day to day what it is that I'm working on. Even, I know a lot of people who say if I'm in a book an hour a day, I can kind of keep track of it. And I have a really hard time remembering from day to day what it is that I've been working on. So I like to do, 3-day weekends where all I do is eat terrible food and sit in the basement by myself and sweat it out and write as much as I can, and get as far as I can, and then you know, go back to it as soon as possible. Again, with if I have 3 days, I can make stuff happen. But yeah, hour day's hard for me.
There's something
Yeah.
about the binge that sort of appeals to me. I feel like that's actually me too. I keep trying to force myself to be a everyday person, and I'm just more of a
Mhm.
binge person. So it's somehow reassuring to hear that that's how you do it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel it's really unhealthy. But it's
Must be why I like it.
Your
yeah.
tribe is everywhere, Luella.
So when you are writing, what kind of tools do you use? You write in Word? Are you a Scrivener guy? What's your preference?
Um, I'm kind of all over the place. It's weird how it feels like every project has its own sort of demands. I have written a novel. I actually have written a kind of a novel and a half in Scrivener, and liked it, and thought the tools were really excellent. About midway through the second one I was working on, I suddenly felt like I don't like the way the chapters are in different folders. I don't want to have to pop between things. I want to have one long document, and then I didn't like the Scrivener one long document. So I popped back over into Word, and then went very analog the rest of the time, took all my notes on index cards, and instead. So I like all those tools, but I feel like in some ways I have to trick myself into feeling like I'm doing something new, or else any tool loses its magic. And so lately I thought I'd pull this out. Since lately, um, everything I'm doing kind of looks like this. And I'm writing on half sides of pages and then taking notes on the other side of the page, and it feels like I'm more in the flow and less likely to pop into Instagram, which is very important. Uh,
That is
You know,
yeah,
true.
that really resonates with me. What you said is that each project kind of has its own tool demand.
yeah,
Because I feel like whenever I start a book, one of the first things I think about is, okay, what am I going to use to draft the
yeah,
book? Like I always end up in Word, but what am I using to get to that final stage of Word? So boy, that really hit me in the feels there is thinking about the tools and what I'm going to use.
yeah, yeah.
How about
It's
some
weird.
advice?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you have advice or tricks that work for you if you get stuck. And, some people call that writer's block or just whatever it is that sort of makes you feel less creative than usual. What do you have that provides inspiration or gets you unstuck?
Yeah. The list making, getting off the computer and getting analog is helpful for me. I have to give myself a lot of times I'll have to give myself time limits where I'll say, I will not touch this computer again for a day, or a couple of days, and I'm just gonna write and write whatever comes to mind about these characters or about the situations, and I'm going to do it all on paper. Um, I am I am not a planner, generally speaking. I am a pantser uh, until I get stuck. And then sometimes outlining is the best thing for me. And even if I, then rebel against that outline, um, it's the thing that gets me unstuck to see my way through to the next part. So I'll do a lot of outlining on index cards. And I just have a lot of these kinds of things lying. They're all over my house. Index cards with scrawl on it. And I feel like that will help me out. I really do like the Save the Cat beats. Um, and so when I am stuck in the middle of a project and I'm not sure where to go, sometimes I'll reverse outline it and see kind of where I am in the Save the Cat beats, and that will sometimes give me inspiration for, what the next problem in the book has to be in order to get me through to the next situation. Um, and this is, I think, especially true of YA. I mean, they're coming of age stories. All of them are coming of age stories in some way, and so they do tend to follow that natural wave. So the Save the Cat beats fit that wave really nicely. They don't fit every kind of structure that you want to put on a book, but that kind of structure is great. Uh, yeah. So it is tricks. You got to trick yourself.
Yeah, and find what works for
Yeah,
you. I really liked the fact
yeah.
that you went straight to list making and going analog, which actually totally makes sense. I've heard other folks say, just get up and go for a walk and let it percolate, let things percolate, and sometimes just coming back to it works too. And but I liked the list making and the analog
Yeah.
advice was great.
This is why advice is so funny to me, because I've had lots of people also tell me over the years, "Oh, exercise or go for a walk." I lose it all. If
Yeah,
I exercise, I disappear into nothingness and I come back with nothing. So
there you
sometimes
go.
going to
Find what works
sleep.
for you.
Yeah.
You
Sleeping
know,
sometimes works. Yeah.
I'm going to take a little bit of issue in your description of yourself as a pantser, not a plotter. Considering that notebook that you held up and the fact that you do index
Mhm.
cards and you consider yourself a pantser, that would actually make me just a random set of writing impulses everywhere because you are far more organized just based on what I saw than I ever have been. So good on you
All
for that.
right. So maybe I'm just rebelling against being called a planner. I like the notion of pantser
Yes,
better. That seems cooler.
you're a
Yeah.
planter.
A
Yes.
planter.
It sounds more fun when you say a pantser.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
Before we move on to our special sauce, just for our listeners out there who may not be familiar, do you want to just tap a little bit into the Save the Cat
Oh,
methodology that
sure.
you referenced there? Because not everybody understands from the same level.
Yeah. So Save the Cat is it's really, so let's go back to, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, right? Which is a 12 point structure through a hero's journey, and it's built on ancient myths that this is a journey that a hero would take and that there are these 12 phases. Um, in that hero's journey, they tend to describe a phase of the story, but they're not necessarily in order. Sometimes the beats of that hero's journey can be turned around and placed in different orders. Um, so the screenwriting guy who wrote mostly kind of goofy comedies picked up on that hero's journey, and he doesn't really reference it, but it is kind of the same thing, and he broke story, the same kind of story, down into 15 beats, 15 phases that almost always occur in the same order. And once you read the book, Save the Cat, um, you will find yourself going, "Oh my gosh, I understand something magical about the way most Hollywood movies are made," because you see those things happening again and again and again. And in fact, even in episodic television, you kind of see the same things happening again and again and again. So this Save the Cat, uh, those Save the Cat beats really are helpful in figuring out for me where I am in a story and kind of what's coming next. Um, and so, yeah, I really recommend it. There is a Save the Cat novel book out there. Um, I teach a television. Look at that. All right. I teach a television writing course and I use this Save the Beat television writing book, and it's awesome. Students really get it. It's really well explained, and once you figure it out, you can break it in all kinds of different ways. But it does describe something sort of essential about the way, especially kind of a hero's journey or a coming of age um, story is constructed.
Great
Yeah.
summary. And for those who didn't see it because Luella was off screen, she actually held up a cover of the novel Saves a Cat. It just didn't show because Geoff was talking. So very,
Yep.
very, very good book. Great book for developing your craft. All right.
Mhm.
Now, Luella, we can jump in.
Yep, we're up to special sauce, Geoff. We want to hear a little bit more about what makes you you aside from your writing and or literary kudos. So,
Yeah.
tell us what your special sauce is, sir.
I think I got two things going on that are, I'll call them my special sauces. It's like ranch and buffalo ranch. I don't know. Like I've mentioned a couple of times, my wife and I kind of come from writing real weird comedies. And so we spend a lot of time just riffing. That's our relationship is essentially based on riffs. And so that's what we do. Even our fights are very funny, I think. It's a lot of riffs. So comedy is always been real important to me. And then the other thing that is kind of a later development in my life, because I'm a professor at Minnesota State, I can take credits for free, which is remarkable and excellent. And so the last year or so, I've been working on uh, a master's in mental health counseling.
That
And
is a cool special sauce. Wow.
yeah, it's been really invigorating. There aren't enough male counselors, and especially in rural areas, there where I think it's needed. So I'm kind of thinking that, I'm going to retire at some point and uh, retire into being a therapist. But it's been interesting how the that education has fed my work a ton.
I mean, I bet it helps you understand character and
Yeah,
things like that. I mean,
yeah.
give us an example.
Well, that's exactly it. So many of the theories that you put to use as a mental health therapist actually describe the processes that you would want a character to go through during the course of a story. The conversation between creative writing and psychology is sharp and thick, and a lot of the stuff that I read just makes sense because I feel like I've been studying it since being a lit student a long time ago. So yeah, it they're in conversation, and it's opened up a different way for me to speak about stuff in my own writing.
I think that's just really great. And I think it's admirable too that you recognize that there are not a lot of male therapists, particularly in rural areas, and you see an area that needs help and you've already got your eye on it. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, one day that sounds like a good way to retire. I'm also an incredibly jumpy person, so when I have time off, I feel terrible. So I'm hoping this will be a something good to get into to yeah, keep myself from going bananas.
Yep.
Yep. And for those not aware, Mankato is certainly considered rural. I mean, it's one town a couple hours away from Minneapolis, but there's really not much else around it. It is really
No,
just small farm communities that surround it for about an hour in any
yeah,
direction. So you're
yeah,
definitely in the right geographic location for that. All right. So, Geoff,
yeah.
where can people find you in the virtual world?
Yeah, I'm jeffherbach.com, but I'm a Goff at Geoff, Herbach. So that's where you can find me on the web. I think it's, Instagram, I think it's the at Geoff Herbach. All of it is just the Geoff Herbach. The lucky thing about the Geoff name is there aren't other Geoff Herbach's out there. So my socials tend to just be Geoff Herbach. So if you search me up on Facebook or Instagram, you'll find me there. I have to say though, because of the algorithms in Facebook and Instagram, I used to be out there a lot because I enjoyed seeing what people I knew were up to. And the fact that I'm just getting dance videos from Malaysia or whatever, and people crashing their bicycles. When I look through my feed, I'm not out there nearly as much. So I wonder, I don't know, and this is actually a question for you all. If are, you as writers, and do you hear other writers saying that social media is no longer doing what it once did for you?
I think the bloom is kind of worn off. I get the people falling videos because those always amuse me. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you.
I am looking clearly longer than I should be at the dudes crashing their bicycles.
I do feel like one of the things that's happens with social media is, it is on the user to curate their feed.
Mm,
And it is an active thing that you need to do deliberately all the time, or you will
yeah,
be fed a lot of weird, icky, meaningless stuff. Just my two
I
cents.
agree. I agree.
mm,
And it becomes exhausting, right? To go on to a feed and it's like, all right, click, don't show me any more of this. Click, don't show me any
yeah,
more. Suddenly I
yeah,
spent all my time just administering and not actually
yeah,
scrolling and reading anything. So I agree, Luella, but boy, it's an insurmountable task sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
All right, should we jump into good news?
Absolutely. Listeners, we love to celebrate good news, so please email us yours at podcast@wiwrite.org. We're going to kick it off with WWA member Peggy Joke Williams' new historical fiction, Braving the Dawn, a novel of New France, which was released earlier this year by Black Rose Writing. Peggy was a chapter break guest on Midwest Writers Room in 2025, so congrats to Peggy.
And also, WWA member Lynn Barber put out a book called A Charisma of Owls, which was published by Atmosphere Press earlier this year. Lynn is a birder and an author, and her book includes not just information about owls, but paintings of them as well. Congrats, Lynn.
Ken, kick us off. What do you got?
All right, my news is going to be a little bit closer to home, pun intended on this one. My son is back from college. 22-year-old son is back from lacrosse for spring break, and parents of college-age kids may resonate with this in just having that life back in the house. I mean, he happens to be the loudest of my three kids. Like when he's gaming, you hear it all over the house. Oh, he makes all these random noises that you can hear through a closed bedroom, but they're just some sort of comfort and nice familiarity in hearing that noise again, even if it's only for a week. Geoff, what do you got for good news?
Well, I think the good news is it's going to be 65 degrees here in 2 days. You all got this terrible snow too. I really despise March.
Yeah.
It, it's awful. So my good news is that spring is gonna happen. Probably winter will happen again after it. But
Yeah.
it's coming, and I am delighted for 65 degrees coming this weekend.
You
I will
really can't
agree.
have a podcast with the word Midwest in the title and not talk about the weird weather that we I was
Awful. Yes.
outside in my back patio enjoying the sunshine and 60-degree weather just a few days ago, and now there's 10 inches of snow on the ground. So I'm with you, Geoff.
I will agree. March is kind of the dickhead of months throughout the year. Well, what
True.
you got for us?
All right. Well, last weekend, my husband celebrated his birthday, and we went to a friend's house for a gathering. And this particular friend has a farm, and she had chickens and baby chicks and goats and a bunny and two alpacas and sheep and a donkey. And I was just in heaven, and some cats and dogs too. So I was just running around like the little farm girl I once was. I grew up on a farm and have no interest in doing any of that work, but going and petting all the animals for a few hours was right up my alley. And so that's going to be my good news today. So,
So,
listeners, please send us your notes. We would love to share in your successes and shout you out on the podcast. That email address is podcast@wiwrite.org.
All right. And so I want to take this time to thank Geoff for coming on to the pod and talking to us today, specifically about, I don't know, cats and Platteville and our flip-flop in location and rooting interests amongst the sports. Folks, if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app of choice. This is the type of action that helps us grow the program, helps other writers find us. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today in the Midwest Writers Room. I'm Ken Humphrey.
And I'm Luella Schmidt. Words ignite imaginations and spark change. Never underestimate the power of storytelling.
Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Writing and editing by Luella Schmidt and Ken Humphrey. Sound design and editing by Ken Humphrey. Music for the Midwest Writers Room was written by Michael Ramirez C. For more information, please visit wiwrite.org/podcast. Thank you.